Great, thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. My name is Yvonne and I work within the Secretariat. We have a team of Secretariat staff joining you today. And the idea would be to have consultations with you as parties, as stakeholders about challenges that you may be facing with trying to ensure that when you're exporting chemicals that are listed in Annex 3 to the Rotterdam Convention, how to make sure that exporters comply with import responses and decisions that parties have made in those import responses. So to maybe give you an overview of what we'll talk about today, the majority of the time will be handed over to you. And for some of you who were able to join the webinar that we had earlier on this week, there will be a similar format in that most of the time we would like to dedicate to this open session for you to speak to us. We really want to hear from parties about what challenges you're facing, to have an exchange between you as well. When we had the webinar earlier on this week, it was in relation to importing parties, and we had quite a lively discussion there, an exchange of different practices that people had in place. So we really hope that you'll feel free to share your experiences, share whatever practices, mechanisms you have in place in your countries, and between you with the Secretariat. This activity is actually flowing out of the work of the Compliance Committee. And we'll give you a short presentation of why it's coming out of that work, and then go into the sort of framework that we're operating in, the space, and what the obligations are under the convention, before turning over to you. So without further ado, and to explain why we're looking at this, so under the Rotterdam Convention, you do have a compliance committee that has been established since 2019. And it's based on Article 17 of the Convention itself, although the terms of reference are contained within an additional annex that was adopted by the Conference of the Parties. The intention is to assist parties with complying with obligations under the Convention. And how does the committee do that? There are two channels of work that it has. So the first is in relation to specific submissions, so looking at an individual party, and there are various ways that a specific submission can come to the committee, but there it's really looking at the tailored situation of that party and any challenges that are being faced, and how to help the party so that it can come back into compliance and meet its obligations under the convention, so do what it's supposed to do under the convention. But there is also a mechanism to review systemic issues of general compliance, so that relate to all parties. And that's the channel of work that we will be looking at today. So the committee has met twice so far. The last time was in March in Rome. There were 11 members who were present. Those members are there as independent experts in the subject matter covered by the convention. They have a chair, a vice chair, and a rapporteur. So currently the chair is Mr. Osvaldo Alvarez Perez, the vice chair is Carolina Antonin, and we have a rapporteur, Mr. Hamajoda. There are observers who also participate, and those are either from parties, but they are also from non-governmental organizations. And there is at the moment a very specific mandate for enhanced cooperation with the Basel Convention Implementation and Compliance Committee, so their chair was also present at the last meeting. Turning to the work and what's actually going on at the moment, at that meeting they had 8 decisions. The meeting was suspended at that time, and they will resume later on this year, but online format rather than face to face. And the specific channel of work, the specific decision was 2.5, and that relates to both importing parties and exporting parties. So those of you who were with us earlier on this week will have already have seen this slide. But what we will focus on this time is the exporting party side of things. So we are looking at communicating with parties about import responses, but also about challenges that are being faced with ensuring that exporters comply with those decisions under the import responses. So the balance being found in the Rotterdam Convention. And to go into the specifics of that obligation, I'll pass the ball to my colleague, Wahid, who will be able to explain to you a little bit more detail about the different obligations and actions that you need to take under the convention. Dan, if I could ask for your assistance, actually, because I'm having a little bit of trouble with changing the ball. Thank you. Wahid, over to you.
Thank you, Yvonne, and good afternoon, good morning to all colleagues who have participated in today's online consultation. So I will just give an overview of the obligations and the measures that should be taken by the exporting parties to compliance with the Rotterdam Conventions. So in the obligation of the exporting parties, according to the Article 11 of the Rotterdam Convention, they have to ensure implement appropriate legislative and administrative measures to communicate import responses forwarded by the Secretariat in accordance with the paragraph 10 of the Article 10 to those concerned within its jurisdictions. They should also take the appropriate legislative and or the administrative measures to ensure that the exporters within its jurisdiction comply with the decision in each response, but it should not be later than the 6 months after the date of communication by the Secretariat. And advise and assist importing parties on request and as appropriate to obtain further information to help them take action in accordance with the paragraph 4 of Article 10 and paragraph 2C of the Article 11, and as well as to strengthen their capacities, capabilities to manage chemical safety safely during their life cycles. And they have to ensure that a chemical listed in the Annex 3 is not exported to any importing party that has failed to transmit import responses or transmitted interim response without interim decision unless the conditions met. Those conditions could be like the chemical that at the time of import is registered as a chemical in the importing party, or the chemical for which evidence exists is that has previously been used in or imported into the importing party, but no regulatory action to prohibit its use has been taken so far. Or there could be the explicit consent to import has been sought out and received by the exporter through a DNA of the importing party. But the importing party DNA should respond that such request within the time frame, which is most probably like the 60 days after receiving the request from the exporting party, and as well as the importing party has also to notify the Secretariat of its decision. Well, the aspects that should be considered are including the identification of existing administrative and legislative measures, that they have to review the existing administrative and legislative framework in place to support the compliance with the Rotterdam Convention. They have to analyze or identify the gaps or the weaknesses of in the current compliance mechanism that needs to be addressed, and also conduct thorough identification of all the stakeholders involved, including relevant government ministries, regulatory bodies, and the exporters itself. And method of communication or any coordination information exchange, it's just to make sure that the communication and the coordination mechanism is in place to ensure the efficient information exchange between all the stakeholders, ensuring the clarity and the mutual understanding of the exporting parties. And source of information that could be available through the national database, like the gazettes of the country, PIC circulars, and the national consultations and the mechanisms. While the compliance by the exporters, the exporters should ensure, sorry, they have to acknowledge and respond to communications received through the PIC circular that, as mentioned earlier, it should not be more than later than the 6 months. It is just to demonstrate a commitment to the compliance with the Rotterdam Conventions. And what measures does your country have in place? These might including national legislation, regulatory framework, or the specific administration actions aimed at ensuring the compliance with the conventions. The receipts of the communication by the DNA, actually this is the process by which the DNA receives and processes the communications. This could involve like logging communications, acknowledging receipts, etc. And how is the information shared with the exporters? This could be through official notices, update through the industry associations, or any digital platform designed to ensure the exporters are informed about the compliance requirements. And who need to comply? Actually, this is just need to identify all the exporters within your jurisdictions who are subject to compliance with the Rotterdam conventions. And the consequences of the non-compliance by the stakeholder, this could be administrative, criminal, or other. In the administrative, it's like might include the loss of license, imposition of fines, which could also involve the suspension of export privileges or other administrative sanctions. For if there is some serious violation of compliance requirement, then there could be some criminal consequences that could be like legal actions, prosecutions, or potential imprisonments. In other cases, there could be like some actions like blacklisting, etc. And just to motivate the stakeholders to adhere to the compliance requirements, there could be some incentives that could be through like such as tax breaks, recognitions, awards for the compliance companies or the exporters, and could be access to the training and the information material. And why the compliance is most important? First, it's the binding obligations according to the PIC circular PIC procedure. And this early warning system, shared responsibility. Actually, this just to facilitate the international cooperations and information sharing to support the policymakers in their assessment of the benefit of chemical and to assess the risk that they pose to the human health and the environment on the basis of scientific data. And informed decision making is actually just to enable the parties to have access to the information and be alerted to the potential risk that to the health and environment caused by the certain hazardous chemicals and the pesticides. And this is also to enable them to take any regulatory actions at the national level. And access to the information on the hazardous chemicals and pesticide stakeholder, particularly in the developing countries and the countries with economies in transitions, need to know if whether they are using is dangerous and can benefit from being informed of what affordable alternatives may be available. And technical assistance is one of the most important part. It is available to support the developing countries and the countries with the economy in the transitions to build their capacity, such as the human resources, policy, legal or institutional frameworks that which is necessary to safely manage the chemicals. So there's no set format or the procedure to communicate the information to the exporters, but this need to be more work or the discussions to establish some such formats to communicate the information to the exporters. Here I will end my presentation. So I will hand over back to my colleague Yoon to continue the session. Over to you, Yoon, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wahid. And I see we have a few more people who've joined us as well during that presentation. So it's really wonderful to see such a great mix of different stakeholders from different countries, different parts of the world as well. And just to really appreciate this, in particular, those who are up at either very late or very early hours. So thank you for making the time for this. So now we will move forward to what we refer to as our open session. For the open session, it really is turning it over to you. So learning from your experiences, hearing what challenges you may have had, if you found something that worked really well, we also would like to hear. The intention would be to collect all of this information. It will be shared with the compliance committee, and that can inform their decision making and any recommendations that they will make to the COP. So it really is trying to get the information about what's happening on the ground and move that up to the COP level, so that it really does reflect something that is feasible and that addresses any challenges that that you may be facing. So you can ask a question, share an experience in a number of different ways. Please either feel free to drop a message into the chat or to raise your hand. So you'll see there's a little raise hand icon. It should be, I think, at the bottom. So please feel free to jump in and really share as much information as you can. We would love to hear from you. I think there are some of you who are from countries that do undertake quite a lot of exports. So maybe to see if you've got some mechanisms in place already. And again, Dan, if I can ask you just to keep an eye as well on the hands that are being raised. So please feel free to jump in there. I don't think we have any questions. Okay, so Maria Jose, if you have problems with the audio and camera, not a problem. Please feel free to drop a message into the chat, and we would love to hear from you. I'll give you a few minutes to think about if there's something you would like to share. This really is a chance to hear from you. Petronilla, please, we would love to hear from you.
Okay, good day, everybody. So basically, Antigua and Barbuda does not do much exporting. However, we do a lot of importing. The issues that we tend to face in terms of the Pesticide and Toxic Chemical Control Board is that on the invoices that are imported, a lot of times the actual name for the chemical is not there, or the pesticide is not there. Sometimes you would find a number, and if you try to search for the number, it will not give you the information that you require, which is basically the active ingredient, to let you know if it's harmful or whatever the case may be. So that's one of the issues that we face. So normally when we receive something like that, we would have to send it back, and then they would have to go through the company again to get the information. So it makes the process even longer. So I don't know if the exporters or something can be put in place so that it's mandatory that the trade name of the chemical or pesticide has to be on the invoices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. And maybe just to ask if we can, because it's always very interesting to hear from the Caribbean in particular, because you have quite a specific situation. But in terms of the communications or the request for that number and how to identify the chemical, does that go straight from the national authority in Antigua to the company, or do you work with the authorities in the other exporting parties and then on to the exporters, just to know how that chain of communication happens?
Okay, so we work with other stakeholders, such as the customs and ports. They would be the first contact most times because everything comes through the port. If they would go through the invoices first, send the brokers or the individuals to us in order to sign off on the documentation before it goes back to them. If they notice something is missing, they would flag it as well.
So there's a very close relationship between the pesticides board and the customs. That's great.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that that information. And maybe others have experiences. Maybe others have encountered this problem and found a way to ensure that information is available. It would be nice to have some exchanges as well as to. Amos, yes, please, and welcome. I see your hand is up, Amos, but I see you're still muted.
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
Okay,
Thank you.
you very much. You can hear me. Thank you very much. My name is Amos Ishaya. I'm joining from Nigeria, from the designated national authority for the Rotterdam Convention in Nigeria. Let me see, follow up to the challenge I mentioned on the Tuesday when we had call. Additionally, we in Nigeria, we are mainly importing, let me see, we do not manufacture chemicals here in Nigeria as much. So what really happens, the chemical industry outlook is more of importation. Importation, more of importation. Now, from the DNA, we are aware the number of export notification we receive here in Nigeria compared to the chemicals that enter into the country, not tallying. It's not tallying because Nigeria import more, but we have very, let me say, very small number of export notification on the chemicals that are available in, so which does not really tally. We are working on the initiative. Just your colleague advised that we initiate direct communication with other DNAs to see how effectively that one can work. But additionally, I needed to point out this one that the number of export notification we receive in Nigeria does not tally with the imports we have into the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amos. And maybe just to see as well, just thinking about again how that communication happens and the information exchange, it would be really interesting to hear from you as to how you know, and maybe this is something that was covered in the workshop as well, but to also share with those who are here, how to identify, how to tell when there is this discrepancy between what you're actually receiving and the information. How do you investigate that those numbers don't tally?
Okay. Because we are the focal point for the chemicals issues in the country, we are aware of more importation that comes into the country through the data bank of our registration, database of our registration. So looking at the database, we see more of importation there, but very few export notifications comes in. So there we look at wide gap and say export notification and import of chemicals into the country does not really tally. So we have very scanty export notifications that we receive compared to chemicals coming into the country.
Okay, so it's a question of tallying between what you have in the database and perhaps the information that's being held by customs or other enforcement entities who are sort of first line of call. Perhaps maybe just to also highlight to everyone the comment that our colleague Alec put into the chat, that under Article 13, paragraph 2 of the Convention, parties exporting chemicals listed in Annex 3 and or banned or restricted in exporting parties are mandated to have labels in place including the name, CAS number and SDS, preferably in the language of the importing party. So that's looking to the point made by Petronilla earlier on. And maybe that's something where if you have a trading partner who you've seen, you have a larger volume coming through from them, maybe that's something to also take up with the DNA of that party to see if something can be done. Just recalling with the presentation earlier on, we were talking about potential consequences for not following what needs to be done. That could be something that your exporting partner and the exporting parties need to take action on as well. I see. Oh, Alec, yes, please.
Thank you, Yvonne. I just want to address the last question that was posted once more from the same colleague, the same DNA, on the fact that they're receiving a lot more imports, which is not matching or followed by export notification from certain parties. I just want to clarify that they need to get back to Article 12 of the Convention text. And unless those exported chemicals are not banned or restricted in the exporting party in this case, they are not in reality mandated or obliged to submit export notifications to the importing party, unless the national legislation of the importing party is specifically requiring to do so. So this is just how the provisions of the convention are working out. So that means if the exporters of those chemicals have not banned them or restrict them at national level, they do not really need to submit export notifications to the importing party. This is just for the matter of clarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alec, and that's a very good point. And maybe just to also say that we have a number of different obligations that relate to export in terms of creating this balance that the convention sets up. So you have the obligation when it is a chemical listed in Annex 3, which is the obligation to share that information about the import responses, to make sure that there's a respect for the decisions in the import responses, which is the communication with the exporters. But then you also have the obligation when it comes to export notifications, which relates to chemicals that are not in Annex 3, and as Alex says, banned or severely restricted and then exported. So again, with the intention of protecting human health and the environment when you have hazardous chemicals being traded internationally. So just to again make that distinction. I see that we have a comment from June in Kenya about an updated list of HS codes for chemicals in Annex 3. And in Kenya, we usually share information with the Customs Authority, but the HS codes list on the website is not complete and does not include recently listed chemicals. I think there is some time required for the HS codes to be updated, but perhaps maybe to turn to my colleagues for further details about that. I think there's a time between the decision being made at the COP and then it needs to go into the World Customs Organization system to be allocated an HS code. But please, colleagues, if I could ask for your expertise there. So I don't know if Alec, would you like to take that one?
Yes, I mean, basically, Yvonne, you answered the question. There's some time lapse between the period when the chemical is listed into Annex 3, and then there's an official request from the Secretariat side that goes to the World Customs Organization, and they have certain meetings every year, and then it takes time for that code to be allocated for the specifically newly listed Annex 3 chemical before it gets back to us and is officially assigned and shared in our website. So the process is not that straightforward. There is some, let's say, time lapse of year something plus before this is kind of this process. Official process is finalized. I do not know exactly the timeline and the days, but it's just not something that happens immediately as soon as a chemical is getting listed. As soon as we have what I want to reassure June in this case, that as soon as we receive that customs code number from the World Customs Organization, is immediately our list is immediately getting updated and shared with at our website with all the DNS and all the interested stakeholders, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alec. And I think it's also a point to highlight to the committee as we go back to them in terms of the challenges being faced by parties with this the time lapse between the HS codes in the Rotterdam context and what is available from the committee under the WCO. I see we also have a question from Ibrahim about is it necessary for importers to submit import responses for chemicals not listed in Annex 3? So the easy answer is no. So the import responses are only for chemicals that are listed in Annex 3. There are a number of different mechanisms under the convention to help with getting information about other chemicals that are not in Annex 3, but that may be subject to bans or restrictions. So one of the ways will be these export notifications. So if you have an export of a chemical that is banned or severely restricted in one country, there has to be a sharing of information through the export notifications with the importing country. So to make sure that you as an importing country are aware of what you're receiving and you can make an informed decision about whether or not to consent to that import. There is also information shared when parties put in place final regulatory actions, which is another mechanism under the convention. And the final regulatory actions are when you have this ban or severe restriction in place. There is a definition of what is an FRA, as we refer to them in the convention, but the basis being that you have a measure to ban or severely restrict. So there's a sharing of information when it comes to that, but there's not the same obligation on the part of the exporting country to make sure that there's sharing of information, that there's compliance with the compliance by the exporters of import responses. So it's different mechanisms when it comes to the chemicals not listed in Annex 3. And again, colleagues, please feel free to jump in if you would like to add anything to that. Jost, please.
Thanks so much, Yvonne. No, just quickly adding to what you and Alex said about the HS codes. So I was able in the meantime to quickly dig up a presentation that Melissa, who is the colleague responsible in the BRS for this this work stream, had sent me. And in there, it specifies that the the whole amendment process from the time of Annex 3 amendment until the new edition is enters into force is up to 5 years. So just as a clarification, but I would be happy also to follow up with Melissa, and then maybe we can send either to June or to all participants if they're interested. Maybe also send a little follow up to provide further clarification on this question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a helpful additional information. So it would also be interesting, I guess, to also see how many of you are in contact with your colleagues who work on World Customs Organization issues, to see if there is that link between the work being done, or direct link, let's say, between the work being done under the Rotterdam Convention and linking into the World Customs Organization. So I don't know if anybody has any experience in that respect, but would be happy to hear from you as well. It seems we've heard from a few of the countries that, or a few of you who are based in countries that mainly import. I don't know if there have been any experiences from those who are looking at exports in particular, and what sort of mechanisms you have in place for sharing that information with your exporters. So we had, for example, the communications with customs. You had also reference to database of registrations. There seems to be in Kenya quite a good link with between the DNA and the customs authority as well. But would be really nice to hear from everyone, and to get a wide variety of voices. We've already made a few points that we'll take out to the committee to inform them, but please feel free to raise your hand or put things into the chat. We're trying to keep up with the chat. Thank you, June. Joost, there we go. Sorry, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to raise their hand, share their experience? I think we have quite a few colleagues from Chile. I don't know if anybody would like to share their experience, just to get some different voices. So as mentioned at the start of the webinar, the intention is really to bring forward information to the compliance committee and to help address issues for all parties. So the aim is not to look at any individual issues, but really to try and see where parties have found things that work, where parties have mechanisms in place, where there might be gaps that need to be addressed, and to then inform any decision. Joost, please.
Maybe just to, maybe it helps to spark the discussion. I would be particularly interested if there's anyone among the participants who could talk about that, who may have experiences in situations where the import response was missing of the country of destination, and the exporter or the DNA may have undertaking some of the measures to meet the conditions that the export can nonetheless go through, i.e. Checked whether the chemical was registered in the country at the time, or checked for evidence if it has previously been imported into the country, or has asked for the explicit consent. And if anybody has such experiences, yeah, it would be great to hear how that went and if that was effective. And so, yeah, about these situations where the input response was missing, and if anybody went through those steps to try to proceed with the export anyway. That would be very interesting to hear.
That's a good point. And yes, the convention does have a specific mechanism of how you can deal with that kind of a situation. Over to you, participants, please. We want to hear from you, and it would be really good to hear from you. I guess most people have experience from the importing side rather than from the exporting side. I don't know if anybody had any questions about what the convention puts out. Yes, if you'd like, Tatiana, that's fine. We can you can ask, and then we can translate for you. I think we have a couple of Spanish speakers, so please le puede decir en español y vamos a traducir.
Hola, buen día. Gracias, Ivonne. Bueno, la experiencia de Chile en realidad con las respuestas de importación no hemos tenido tantos problemas porque hemos tenido apoyo de capacitaciones de la Secretaría y hemos solicitado directamente a Alexander algunas preguntas a través de Javier Bonilla específicas sobre algunas dudas que hemos tenido, pero con el tema de las respuestas de la exportación, ahí estamos un poco más complicados, como que no hemos podido ordenar internamente por temas también de organización de los estamentos públicos que tienen que dar respuesta al convenio. Eso nos ha complicado un poco porque somos varias las instituciones que tenemos que estar coordinando internamente para poder dar respuesta. Entonces, eso es un poco la debilidad que hemos tenido hasta ahora. Eso es lo que te puedo informar más un poco de cómo estamos acá.
Lo voy a traducir para los demás y luego volvemos. So just to share with the other participants the challenges that Tatiana was referring to that are being faced in Chile. She was saying for import responses, they have not had too many issues. Also because they've had some assistance when from the Secretariat when they had questions and weren't sure about certain obligations or aspects of implementation. But for exportation or for exports, it's been more complicated, in particular when it comes to the issue of internal coordination in order to ensure that all of the institutions who need to provide information for responses and that they actually reply. So colleagues, I hope I captured everything. I know that a couple of my colleagues are also Spanish speakers, so please let me know if I missed anything out. But I don't know if there's anybody who wanted to bounce off of that, this issue of internal coordination to make sure that everybody has the information and everybody provides information as well. It's otherwise, it would be good, and I can come back to Tatiana about what sort of mechanism, if anything, there is in place in Chile to get some information on that front as well. Alec, you look as though you're on the point of ready to jump in there. Please feel free.
Yeah, I think the Chilean DNA was wanting to say something.
Tatiana quiere...
No.
Alec, please go ahead.
Well, I think this was already addressed in the presentation by Wahid. In reality, the communication in terms of how is flowing internally between the various stakeholders on the import responses and how to act upon those on the from the exporting party's perspective, it's an internal issue that should be dealt by the country itself. We do not have a, let's say, a pre-cooked recipe for this or suggestions on our side. We just have a recommendation that they should implement, parties should implement those type of provisions in their national legislation that would allow all those interested stakeholders, especially the industry, exporters, and the customs authorities, to be acquainted with the information in line with Article 11 in this case, and of course, based on the responses provided by the importing parties in line with provisions of Article 10, and to comply with those decisions by the importing parties. The information, of course, is shared biannually by the Secretariat, by the PIC circular, and by our website, where all the importing decisions by the parties are communicated. And simply they need to comply in line with those decisions. That means no export should happen or occur in contrary to the decision of the importing parties in line with the PIC procedure. This is what I can share just right now from top of my head. Thank you, and I hope I was clear, and you can maybe translate to Tatiana. But I know that Chile is doing well in this sense, and I have not faced any problems or like from their side in this sense. Thank you.
And I will certainly translate for Tatiana in a minute. Just to maybe say, and building on what you had also mentioned, Alec, that there are a number of different mechanisms that can be used. There's nothing that says that prescribes you have to use option 1 or option 2. And so this is also an opportunity for everybody to exchange information about some of the mechanisms that they have in place. One of the things we heard on Wednesday in an importing context was to have meetings between the stakeholders. There was one of the participants who referred to having meetings, I think it was once a year, twice a year, and so to share information in that sense. So that could be something that is quite helpful. And if, because of financial implications, it might be possible to look at having, for example, a teleconference or something online that might be more feasible in terms of people's time, also with travel. So I'll just maybe translate for Tatiana. No sé si había entendido lo que hemos intercambiado ahora mismo, que no hay un mecanismo exacto en el contexto del convenio, pero hay varias posibilidades y la idea es poder intercambiar durante esta consultación sobre lo que funciona o no. Y el miércoles, cuando tuvimos otra consultación, había uno de los participantes que estaba compartiendo información sobre su país y la práctica que tenían de tener reuniones entre, bueno, ha sido un comité, pero entre todas las personas interesadas, las partes interesadas, que tenían reuniones 1 o 2 veces al año, y eso puede ser uno de los ejemplos. No hay un ejemplo que sea mejor que el otro, pero es una opción.
Sí, acá tenemos esa instancia de reunión y coordinación con otras instituciones. Logrado así porque Chile, la verdad, estaba bien retrasado con el cumplimiento de algunas obligaciones relativas al convenio y hemos logrado avanzar en algunos temas, coordinarlos, instruirlos, dejarlos por escrito a nivel interno, pero el tema de las exportaciones es lo que nos tiene ahora, bueno, ese es el último desafío que nos va quedando para ordenar un poco la situación interna y eso es como lo que nos falta trabajar en el fondo.
Bueno, lo voy a traducir de nuevo y volvemos a
Muchas
Chile.
gracias.
Just to share as well with participants that there is actually a committee in place in Chile, and it has been working very well for for everything in the last challenge relates to exports. And so they are working on that, and to see how that could enable them to implement what is needed in terms of exports. So we have one example of a committee in place, and we did also have a reference to sharing information on databases. I don't know if anybody has direct communications in another manner with exporters in their country, either through such a mechanism or maybe through Chamber of Commerce. It could be another option. No, I think we've exhausted everybody now. Is there anyone who would like to have a last opportunity to share with us, either on this platform, or you can also follow up with us by email as well afterwards. But of course, it would be interesting for the other participants to hear from you. If not, I think we might close up there. So I don't see, unless Dan tells me otherwise, I don't see any hands or any chat messages that we might have missed. So with that, we will say thank you very much to all of those who exchanged with us today, all of those who participated. Thank you very much for sharing information about what is happening in your countries, about the different experiences, about the challenges that you might be facing. As we mentioned just earlier, there will be some information coming out from the committee as we go forwards, including requests for collection of information. So please feel free to, and you would be more than welcome to respond to those. We would really like to hear from you. So that will probably be in the form of a set of questions for you to answer. It shouldn't be very long, but again, all information that you can share with the committee would be welcome to inform both the committee's decisions and what will be taken in the COP in 2025. So with that, thank you very much to everybody for your time, and please feel free to reach out to the Secretariat if you have any other questions. Y gracias a todos los compañeros de América Latina. Thank you. Have a good day.
Many thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias, muchas gracias.
And just to confirm, the presentations will also be made available to you afterwards. Sorry, I didn't specify, but you will receive the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yvonne, tu es encore là?
Oui, je suis là, pardon.